Hey, and long time no see everyone. First off, I gotta apologize for the long absence. A few weeks ago, some of our systems got hacked, and for a short time, the hacker had access to my accounts and personal information. They even went so far as to impersonate me to try and cause as much trouble as possible. It was a mess. Fortunately, accounts have now been secured, everything is in its place, and through it all, they never actually managed to get access to this channel, which is a huge relief. It did put back some of our ongoing projects though, since we had to reset our PCs to get rid of some malware, and basically change passwords and bolster up security on everything. But I'm glad to say that things are back on track again, so back to business. Anyway, I am a little behind on covering Tekken and fighting game news. I still have some hands-on impressions with Tekken 8 I'm really eager to share with you soon. But before that, I want to talk about this guy. Bob, aka Boy on Bike, or Hwoarang as he's sometimes known. This is possibly my favorite redesign so far in Tekken 8, for a lot of reasons which I'll get into soon. I'm hesitant to call it a redesign though, because it's actually more of a throwback and seems like a direct evolution of his Tekken 4 design, which I think makes a lot of sense. Tekken 4 tried to push forward a lot of interesting new designs and directions for the classic characters, but the game itself wasn't too popular with much of the fanbase, so for Tekken 5 and 6, they played it safe by reverting to the tried and true. They've seemingly binned the whole eye patch, t-shirt 3 sizes too small approach from Tekken 7, which I actually thought was pretty cool and really fit the whole biker aesthetic, but it also felt like a different character. Now we're back to a Hwoarang who's once again fully embracing Taekwondo, and I'm really on board with that. One of the reasons I love Tekken is because it manages to balance over-the-top action with down-to-earth, realistic depictions of martial arts. And with everything I'd seen from Tekken 8, it seemed like they'd forgotten or at least downplayed that second aspect. Then Hwoarang comes crashing in with this back-to-basics, elegant, pared-down approach, and I think it's just fantastic. This really appeals to me personally. I know some people think it's a little too under-designed and basic, but that's what I love about it. Different strokes for different folks, I guess, but I like the fact that he actually looks like someone who does martial arts and is proud of it. I feel like this character has sort of grown up in the coolest, most organic and natural way possible. There are also nods to his master Baek here, with the hairstyle and also cribbing several of his moves, such as the lightning halberd, siege mortar, and airborne trident after a parry. Something that really stood out to me in this trailer is how Hwoarang has seemingly lost his cactus shot from right flamingo, and instead has this new move which leaves him in right stance with some frame advantage. I like this change because it reinforces Hwoarang as more of a stance-shifting character as opposed to the constant mix-up-y blender direction they pushed him towards in Tekken 7, where every stance basically resulted in a 50-50. Now this same move can cause a knockdown, but seemingly only in heat. There's also a clip of him explicitly using the evasion from Flamingo to force a whiff, and that's again a throwback to more of a classic, complex Hwoarang playstyle. Both in presentation and perhaps mechanically too, Tekken 8 Hwoarang looks more reminiscent of what he used to be pre-Tekken 7, which I honestly prefer. It means less 50-50s, more pokes, evasion, and using pressure to set up whiffs and counter hits. Of course, we'll have to wait until we get some hands-on time with Hwoarang to see if that's really the direction they're taking. Though, as mentioned in the title, I do think Tekken 8 could well be Hwoarang's game. Hwoarang is a character who started off pretty terrible. Like, if you go back to the older games, for example, his iconic smash low right, that wasn't even a low, it was a mid. Progressively with each new game, they give Hwoarang more options, more ways to get into Flamingo, more flexible pressure, and every time a new Tekken comes out, everyone is like, Hwoarang is top tier now. Then it turns out that he still has the same fundamental weakness. For as suffocating as that close-range Flamingo pressure is, once you understand the holes, where to chance a duck, when to step, and so on, the risk-reward is actually in the defender's favor because A, Launches in Tekken do big damage and wall carry, so one solid read or defensive play will yield more reward than a couple of mix-ups. And B, guarding used to be safe in Tekken. No chip damage, no guard gauge. You can take your time, tank a few lows, and observe the Hwoarang player's tendencies. Not anymore. Tekken 8 has chip damage. When Hwoarang is heated up and pressuring you with stance transitions, you can't just stand there and block that because you're taking white damage. It's going to make his pressure a lot scarier, and the opponent much more prone to making mistakes, which Hwoarang can capitalize off of. Also, combo damage, and especially wall carry, is relatively weaker compared to Tekken 7, so that also indirectly buffs pokes and 50-50s. Not just that, but Hwoarang is sort of the king of Powercrushes in Tekken 7, and Powercrushes are much stronger in Tekken 8, because that health you tank, that's recoverable if you pressure the opponent, which Hwoarang is very good at. He has Backlash, and even though that's been nerfed to not launch anymore, it's still presumably a tracking plus on block high that's very hard to punish. And he also has Double Claymore, which is one of the few armored strings in the game, which means you can tank a hit and then confirm into the second part of the string. Very powerful. Now, when playing around with Tekken 8, it seemed like one of the most important tools, perhaps the most important tool, is a strong heat engager. Like, some of the best ones were Paul's Forward 4, which is a tracking plus on block high, and Law can also go into heat from jabs, and these were really strong. Heat at the moment is very, very powerful. Honestly, I think maybe a little too powerful, but we'll get into that another day. So having a strong, reliable move to get into heat in the opponent's face with 2 heat energy, that's very, very valuable. And Hwoarang seemingly has a plus on block tracking mid heat engager. Now, we don't actually see the heat engagement in the trailer, but these purple flames here, I think, signify that this move is a heat engager. Don't hold me to that, Tekken 8 is a pretty busy game visually. And on top of that, Hwoarang also has a pretty solid long-range mid-heat engager with Peacekeeper. So I think Hwoarang is really going to tick a lot of the boxes for what constitutes a strong character in Tekken 8. The system really works in his favor this time around. And yes, while there are nerfs, particularly to his push hands, which isn't a counter-hit launcher anymore, that's a pretty unified change across the board in Tekken 8. The fact that his Nosebleeder is still a counter-hit launcher is very strong, given how Magic 4s have been nerfed across the board. So, overall, I'm really liking the direction they're taking with Hwoarang in Tekken 8, both aesthetically and mechanically. The general direction with most characters in Tekken 8 so far has been to make their gameplay more mix-up oriented and their designs busier, but Hwoarang seems to buck both of those trends. My only worry is that he might be hard to balance in the context of Tekken 8's system. Similar worries with Steve actually. What do you do with a counter-hit specialist in a game where counter-hits are weaker across the board? I hope they manage to retain his identity without making him overpowered, or just make him top tier as usual. I'm guessing we'll be seeing him on August 20th at Versus Fighting in Birmingham, since they seem to be geographically matching up Masters events with character reveals. Speaking of Steve and Hwoarang, you might have noticed that recently I've been working a lot with a channel called DashFight. This is sort of our partner channel now, and we collaborate quite regularly on all kinds of videos, like podcasts, interviews, and Tekken analysis. One series that we're doing recently is taking a closer look at how real-world martial arts are depicted in Tekken. This week we covered Steve, Hwoarang, and Eddie, and how they represent boxing, taekwondo, and capoeira respectively, complete with a history of all these martial arts. It's a series I'm really proud to be working on, so please do check it out if you have the time. Anyway, thanks so much for watching all. Next week, I'll finally be going into my thoughts about the Tekken 8 system after having had some hands-on time with it. Take care all, have an excellent day, and catch you again real soon.